and started their own company, and it's direct to consumer.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, some really nice high quality mugs. Are you a coffee drinker?
I am.
Well, this will serve you
What
well when you're drinking coffee. And
What about you?
I actually, this is an interesting story. Um, I recently, like in the last 12 months, got a CPAP machine because I was a terrible snorer.
Yeah.
And I quit drinking coffee after I got that CPAP machine because I wake up refreshed.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
prior to that, I woke up and I was all groggy. The first thing I did, in fact, I was so bad that I had one of those little Nespresso espresso makers. I would
Yeah.
have an espresso while my coffee was brewing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was pretty addicted. Um, so I drink tea now. I like something warm in the morning, so I usually have tea.
Okay.
But the afternoon, I would always have another cup of coffee, and I find myself having a Red Bull every now and then, much to my wife's chagrin.
Yeah.
But uh,
Well, I stick to coffee in the morning. Maybe 2 cups. Try to keep it to one.
I do like chai tea lattes, but there's so much sugar in those. All right, I'm gonna sit and pay attention to what we got going. So I watch the how many people are on LinkedIn through my phone.
Okay. So it says live on my screen.
We are live. Be careful what you say.
Okay. Thanks for
Um,
the heads up.
no worries. Yeah, it. What happens is when you start the stream, it notifies everyone who wants to be notified that you've gone live.
Okay.
Um, yeah, unfortunately, I was messing around with those orders this morning, and I didn't get a nice page to put up ahead of time. But I just got to make sure Ash is ready to go. I don't see him in here yet, and then we'll start this thing.
Okay.
Can you get in, Ash? All right. Ashley is still making it happen out there.
Staying
Uh,
busy.
he said something about talking to Nick Anderson.
Oh yeah, I know, Nick.
You know Nick. Um, so yeah, I'm sitting here watching the market. The futures market's up again. That's pretty. What do we got? Last trade in future.
What is it too?
Last trade was 1247 basically. It's actually 1243 off. It's around 1240.
Much volume?
No, the volume looks pretty light.
It looks like March volume's pretty good though.
189 in March or 180. The numbers are too small. Well, January's getting to the end of that contract, so that thing's kind of winding her down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all right, when is Ash going to get on here? Oh, he might be having some technical difficulties. So, Tommy, I was a little soft this morning. I had my wife give me a ride to work. Well, so my kids aren't in school. The Chicago teachers decided it's too dangerous to work.
Okay. Because of
So,
COVID?
because of COVID,
Okay.
so my son wanted my car to drive around and have a good time today, which I can't blame him. So I should have taken the train into work, but to get to the train, I was going to probably have to take the bus or ride a bike. And it was I missed the bus, and it was too cold to ride the bike, so I made my wife drive me to work instead.
So how cold is it?
It was 0 this morning when we got going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's 33 degrees down here in Jackson. So for us, that's pretty cold.
Let me make sure I'm working okay.
Digits.
Mike, am I working okay?
All right. Why is Ash? Oh, there we go.
Sorry, I was just making sure that we were getting enough. We were sending out another link for the stream.
Bump me off. There I go.
Hey, Tommy, how are you?
Doing good, Ashley. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
All right, let's get this thing going. Welcome everybody. It is Friday. What is it? January 8th today?
7th.
Love it.
Oh my gosh. All right, January 7th. It is Friday Smart Market Call. And today we have with us Tommy Stansel of Vicksburg Forest Products. But before we get to his conversation, let's flip it over to Ash. And what happened this week? First week of 2022, Ash. What was going on for you out there?
Yeah, Mike, it's really interesting, and Tommy probably understands this too. There's a lot of the open market wood, especially on pine, is when it comes on the platform, is just getting bought. Right, there still seems to be a bite on pine, on spruce, but the one interesting thing that we saw was what we saw last year is a big divergence between the print price of OSB panels and the actual cash price. So on Materials Exchange, we're trading the spot market, which is what the market is outside of the print market. And we're starting to see a big premium on the spot market versus the print market. Why is that? Because the print market is just a survey of people calling around. And with such a small amount of producers, they don't get a good indication of where the actual cash market is trading. So we have a lot of people all over the supply chain listing items to buy and sell in OSB. And what we did is moved over 40 or 50 trucks of OSB this week, all over the place, to places in the world, in North America, that you wouldn't think would actually make it there. But that shows the power of the platform. What that also shows us is the bite on the market is still pretty good because people are going all over and getting items connecting from all different locations that they don't normally see. So strong market. Before Christmas and the holidays and after, we're in the first quarter. Obviously, it's usually the highest price quarter of the year based on historicals. And what we're trying to do now is ascertain where the inventory build is and when this thing may start to get toppy. But again, if I knew that, I'd be doing something else for a living. So,
all right.
So I'll click it back to you guys.
All right, Ash. Appreciate it.
Just real quick, too, if you're on our YouTube channel, make sure that you hit the button and register to become a member so you can subscribe and see real time when we go live and we get better engagement from you. So thanks much, guys.
And, if you missed the live stream, of course, we post all the videos on YouTube. You can watch them later. All right. Thanks, Ash. So welcome, Tommy Stansel. Who are you? Why are you on this show? What's going on?
Well, thanks, Mike, for having me. The reason I'm on the show today is to talk about Vicksburg Forest Products. It was a hardwood sawmill that we purchased in 2018, and we did some conversions to it. We got it running, and then we decided to do an expansion project. So I actually put together a deck. I don't know if
Yep, flip that up here right now.
So, like I said, we purchased the hardwood sawmill from Anderson Tolley in 2018, and then we got it running with Southern Yellow Pine, and the workforce is great. So we definitely wanted to invest some more money into it. So in early part of 2019, we started looking at doing an expansion project. We talked to multiple vendors. And then in March of 2020, right when COVID was going on, we cut a deal with Timber Automation to do a turnkey project for us. Okay. And so before we did the expansion project, we were running around 75 million board feet. And post expansion, we're going to be at 230 million board feet. So it's going to take us a while to ramp up to that.
Got it. Now, we talked about this yesterday. I think that this is really interesting. Well, we'll go into that afterwards. Why don't you go through the deck so everyone gets a good idea of what's going on at Vicksburg.
Yeah, so basically before the expansion, we were primarily a wide mill. So we made 2x8, 2x10, 2x12. And then once we did the expansion, we had the new canner line. We broadened our product mix. So we're basically a 2x4 through 2x12 dimension sawmill. We make some timbers and a little bit of 5/4 as a recovery board off the canner line. So this is from the project. This is the stem deck. So pre-expansion, we had to take 16-foot, 6-inch saw timber logs. This gives us the flexibility to take full stems, which is more traditional for a southern yellow pine sawmill. Here's our merch line. So it scans the log. It'll cut out any crook, defect. And so this is all setting up for our existing mill and then also the canner line. So you'll see in this picture, the large logs are on the left and the smaller logs are on the right side. So basically when the smaller logs are going to the right side, they're going to the new mill, which is where our canner line is. And then the logs that are going to the left are going to the headrig side.
Got it. Makes sense.
So this is our new canner line. It's a cone machinery line. It has quad profilers. That just eliminates any of those sideboards having to go to an edger. And then once the can is produced, it goes to a VSA, which is just a vertical saw arbor. And it has different pockets in there. So depending on what the markets are doing or contracts, we'll make 2x4, 2x6, or some timbers out of it. Here's some pictures. This is the outfeed deck. This is going to the existing trim line. So most of this equipment was actually here. We put in this new unscrambler. And then this is kind of a hard picture to see, but there's a lug loader that's feeding the fence. And so that's just going to trim out any defect that's on the board. And then here it is coming out of the trimmer. We go to the sorter and we sort it by dimension and length. And then we pack it out. And so these are sticks that we put in between each layer. That just allows, we also built 2 continuous kilns. So that allows the airflow to go through the lumber so we can dry it more efficiently. And then this is a tilt hoist over at the planer mill. So we put all this in December of last year, and we got it running, the planer mill up and running full capacity March or April of 2021. So basically a tilt hoist just singulates all the lumber, drops out all the sticks, the dunnage that's on there, and then it heads to the planer machine. We have a Miller planer machine, Miller Manufacturing, Dennis Miller. They're part of Big Group now. Here's VAB. This is our auto grader. This was part of the upgrade with timber automation. So you can see like the image on the top right picture, you'll see like a board and you'll show like the knot displacement. And so we're able to, really hone in and figure out why we're getting defect. Is it because of manufacturing defect or is it because it's just natural defect? So once it grades it, pitches out here on this deck line, goes through a trimmer, and then we sort it. We have an 80-bay sorter. Here's our stamp, SPIB stamp 777. So all our lumber is graded by SPIB, or they come in and they spot check it to make sure that everything is grading out correctly.
Okay.
And then it goes to a double unscrambler right here, singulates it again, and then it stacks it. We have a dual fork stacker. And then we have an inline 2 strapper station. So once it goes through these strappers, it comes out the other side and you'll see this lumber strapped There's a forklift back there. It just picked up some lumber. So we store it in the sheds, and then it's ready for shipment.
The interesting thing I'm seeing here is a lot of automation, not that many people. Traditionally there probably would be a lot more people standing around moving that wood through the sawmill.
Yeah, I mean, just with, and we discussed this briefly yesterday, but over the last 10 years, I've been in this business 11 years, but in just over the last 3 years, the automation, the technology, the computers are getting faster. The controls are doing a much better job of holding the log, making lumber, making less chips, less residuals, and so we're basically have a similar size workforce pre-expansion as post-expansion. So yeah, there's a lot of automation involved.
Oh, that is fantastic. So is that the end of the deck there?
Yeah, that's into the deck.
Okay, perfect. Because so one of the things I learned yesterday, and I actually want to share a picture. Put this up real quick. This is right off the website.
There you go.
What I learned was these are logs these are the only logs that you could actually run before, because you prior to putting in that second line, correct?
That's correct. So in the hardwood space, they would cut everything to 16 feet. And so they didn't need a log merchandiser line like we do in Southern Yellow Pine. So we had to go to the loggers and tell them what our specs were. We had to pay them a few extra dollars to do it, because they just don't want to get out there in the bush and start merching it and having all different products. They just want to be able to take the whole stem to one place. And so now they're able to do that. But we still take some pre-cuts. There's some logs that are just too big that can't go to other sawmills in the area. And that kind of differentiates us from some of our competitors, because we're able to take a larger log.
That's kind of crazy to think about. Oh, this log is too big for us to handle. We can only make wood out of these little logs. You wouldn't think that's the case, but after you look at it, it makes sense. Now, with the new, you're using a word called stem. And when you say stem, I assume you're meaning the entire tree, as opposed
That's right. So usually it's like 45 to 60 feet, somewhere in there. And then once it goes through the log merch and we scan the log, and then we bucket, then we call it a log.
Excellent.
Or block.
So just the fact that you've got this new line has opened up. Well, number one, it's lowered your log cost because you're not such a specialty log buyer. And obviously it's opened up your products that you can produce effectively and efficiently to a much larger spectrum.
That's right.
All right. That is excellent. I'm going to get rid of that now. So you touched on something that I think is really interesting you said that the sawmill technology. Yesterday we were getting ready for the call. We talked, you've been in it 11 years. The equipment is kind of the same. What's really the big differentiator now is this technology of the controls and what you can do with that.
Yeah, exactly. So the optimization and controls has just come light years just in the last 10 years. And most of that has to do with just computing power and being able to process at such high speeds and see what the actual log is doing through the cutting tools. So now they're able to really hold on to the log. They're able to, position it and create as least amount of residual chips or sawdust, and they're able to maximize the lumber yield out of it. But like when it comes to, the piece of machinery, a lot of them are being built similar to how they were maybe 5 years ago, but they're running at a much higher productivity because they have better controls and better computing power.
Yeah, that's so cool. One thing I learned yesterday, and I think it's important for people to understand, is so as a sawmiller, you have an input cost and, you produce something and you get a gain for it, right? your input cost is your log deck. And
Mhm.
I didn't understand how you were buying your logs and like really how close to the market and what your capacity to maintain an inventory of logs or build a log deck. Um, it's a different story in the South compared to like Western Canada. And, it has to do with, well, you told me yesterday, blue stain. So yeah, why can't you have a massive log deck? What's going on?
So, especially during the summer months, when it gets real hot down there, the logs will start turning blue. And so you'll get blue stain and you'll get defect, great defect on it. So, like our log yard, we can hold about 30,000 tons underwater, but we can hold an additional 20,000 tons not underwater. So during the winter months, you can, increase your inventory, your log inventory. But during the summer months, you got to be more cognizant of the heat, humidity that creates the blue stain, and which creates downgrade in your planer mill and your finished product.
So realistically, how many weeks of logs on an average basis weeks of production are you maintaining?
2 to 3 weeks.
And what's the maximum that it would go up to?
Five to six.
So I mean that's not a long time horizon. So if
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 you get a really bad weather event, it can be a problem.
right.
If you get a hurricane or just a lot of rain, we had a lot of rain in 2019. I think it was the wettest January in the history of Mississippi, and there's quite a few times where we thought we were going to run out of logs. Fortunately enough, we didn't. Right when you think you're about to, all of a sudden, the Lord is good and gives you some dry weather, and all of a sudden these loggers are back in the woods and filling up the mill again. So I mean, it's definitely a partnership between us and the logger, and so we want to be as fair as we possibly can on the pricing and let them know, where we are, and kind of give them some, surety. So when they're out there trading on trading on log tracks, they know that what our price is.
And what have you seen in lumber log prices?
So we also own some timberland. So over in Alabama, and the log prices, we're seeing some inflationary um, pricing. So just like lumber is obviously a lot more volatile. There's a lot more expense and capital intensive business. So the sawmill should be rewarded. But on the logging side, we've actually seen an increase in the log price as well.
And then this was news to me because I've historically been a spruce kind of trader. Oops. My phone just started making noise here. The logs that you're buying, where are they coming from? Like, what's the typical plot? Or it's
So
not.
I just feel like in the U.S. South, I mean, it's anywhere from a 60 to 100 mile radius, and it either comes from one of these larger TMOs, or they're in the U.S. South is still primarily owned by individual landowners. So a lot of it just comes off of people's family land. They've been growing trees. They might have converted it. There's some articles that were written. Wall Street Journal talked about it, where there's some inefficient cropland that was turned into tree farms. And with the expansion that's going on in the U.S. South, eventually it'll be more competitive, and the log pricing will be reflected in that. And we think we're timberlanders as well. We think that it's a good investment to plant the pine trees.
Yeah, I agree. So let's shift the conversation to investment. And every time you get to these elevated levels, there's no doubt sawmills are making really good money right now. And I think the key is right now. Um, the the consumers of lumber, to give them a little pause, I guess it's good for them to understand what your investment horizon is. Uh, that generally, if you're talking about someone who's using lumber, I think their investment horizon, and not investment. Oh, yeah, you could say the return on investment If they do a project, this project is going to be 6 months long. You know, they need to buy the material for that, and then once that project's done, the next one that comes in, they can reprice. Whereas, what does it take to get a sawmill up and running, and when do you get break even on this, right?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the announcements, the public announcements. You know, it's anywhere from 5 to 10 years. You know, obviously, just with what's been happening up in British Columbia and the mountain pine beetle, the fires, and then currently the higher prices in lumber has created a new wave of expansion in the U.S. South. That's where the market seems to be growing the most. But the way I look at it, you know, there's some projects that we do where the payback doesn't even look that good, but it's just something you have to do to maintain operations. And we plan on being in operations for a long time. So as long as that resource is there, and right now it is.
So, and let's talk about operations. Yesterday, you and I were, discussing. I look at everything kind of through an economics point of view. Supply, demand. If demand, I'm moving towards labor here. So, in operations, obviously, you need people to do this. So,
Yeah.
I sit back and I'm like, look at the price of lumber. Why don't they just ramp up production? And I go, look, in the oil patch, when oil goes through the roof, they get a whole bunch of people. They pay outrageous wages, and they get people to move to North Dakota. They get people to move to Western Texas. And I'm like, a truck driver can go make $200,000 a year. Well, the price of lumber is high. You don't need more truck drivers. You need people to operate in the sawmill. What
That's
does it
right.
take to get someone up and running to work in a sawmill?
Well, I mean, of course, it's the people that live in the community too. So it's hard to recruit people from other states to come work at a sawmill. And some of the key management positions, we're able to do that. But when it comes to wages, we just have to be more competitive, and our industry is doing that. We definitely look at what some of the other pay is in some of the competing industries in our area. So we got to be competitive with that. And so that's kind of where we are when it comes to wage scale. It's definitely has increased over the last couple of years.
Uh, but I guess where I was going with this is you bring someone in and you're really not going to get a return on that person to their maximum for what, 9 to 12 months?
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, you have to train these folks up, and it just takes a lot of time to do it, just with all the machinery and the technology that's involved. So you got to invest in them, and then 9 to 12 months before they're in a position to be out there working on the floor full time and know what they're doing.
Right. And if we think of 12 months in the lumber market, that can be a big cycle. We can go from what, 1,700 down to 400, back to 1,400. So, we've established that the sawmill's investment horizon is obviously a 5, 6, 7 year horizon. Inside of that, you're going to run through, probably 10 to 15 lumber cycles, top to bottom.
Mhm.
So while you guys are making a bunch of money right now, there's going to come a time where the return is red. I mean, that's the way commodity prices work. So how does all of that fit into the kind of the mindset and the strategy that you work on?
So, like I said, Mike, I mean, basically, with Vicksburg, just speaking of Vicksburg, when we bought it and the employee base that's over there, we felt confident that in the progress that they had made, and we felt like the expansion in the U.S. South was something that was going to be ongoing, and so we wanted to be part of it.
That makes sense. All right, let's bring it to the present day. And lumber prices are great. Vicksburg's doing their part in helping out the market. because you're bringing on more capacity. When do you think the mill's going to be at full capacity?
Probably be second quarter of this year.
And
So we finished a project in October. So we're still just going through the ramp up and start up. But we're seeing better and better days. So it's very encouraging.
and what's the product mix that's going to come out? Are you pulling any MSR yet, or is it a 1-2 prime? What are you looking at?
So yeah, mostly like just like number one, number two, 3-4 common, obviously, 2 prime, number 1 prime. We pull DSS. We don't have an MSR machine in. That's one of the next projects we're looking at.
Oh, that's
You know,
cool. You're looking at an MSR machine.
yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be a
Nice.
pretty quick return. We just got to get this mill up and running.
Well, I know the manufacturers out there would definitely be looking forward to more MSR on the market. Makes their jobs easier. Uh, all right, you know what? Let's. I wrap up, and I always ask a question of the the guest. What do you see coming in the near term future that other people don't see? Like when you sit down on a Saturday and have your cup of coffee in the morning in your soon to arrive Materials Exchange mug. Uh,
Nice.
what do you think about what's going to be what's the world of lumber going to be like in 5 years, in 10 years?
Well, I think that CLT definitely has a place in our industry. Um, it's already taken hold over in Europe. We're seeing Google and Walmart, they're embracing CLT. So I think that, and of course, CLT, there's a lumber aspect to it. So I think that's a market that's definitely viable. And I think that it's going to grow significantly. There's going to definitely be some headwinds and hurdles, but I think that it will gain some market share on steel. I mean, more and more people, they want to live in a cleaner, greener environment. And lumber is the way to do it. I mean, it's basically just a battery of carbon. I mean, it's captured it. So as long as you don't burn it or let it decay, then it's going to hold on to that carbon. So CLT could really revolutionize building. And I think that's something that's going to definitely take hold over the next few years.
What would the mill, as a mill, lumber producer, what do you think you guys would have to do to tweak your production to service the CLT market?
I think it's very minimal.
It's
I mean,
maybe,
it's going to be very minimal. I mean, there's already some companies out there that are, exploring the space in the CLT here in the U.S. South, and they're starting to gain some real traction. And actually, we sell one of them. So, I mean, I just think that there's some issues with building codes and stuff like that got to get worked out. But the actual lumber that goes into it, it can come from a traditional sawmill.
well, there's a theme through this whole conversation that it's become obvious to me. And while you've been in the industry for 11 years, most people would consider that kind of a newbie. Um, but I'm surprised, not surprised, I'm impressed with how quickly Vicksburg has been moving and shifting to the demands of the industry. Um, and continually adding this technology to the sawmilling aspect. You're a big supporter of Materials Exchange, which we totally appreciate. And this is the wave that the industry needs. Um, we obviously can't go backwards. There isn't the labor force to go backwards to acting like it's 1995 anymore. We need to use this technology. It's proven. Um, and I applaud your efforts. And I look forward to seeing new, bigger, and better things coming out of Vicksburg, and maybe there'll be a Vicksburg Forest Products a second mill in the future. Who knows, right?
Right. Who knows? Right now, we're just laser focused on getting the mill operating at peak capacity.
Excellent. We got Dennis Lightbourne said looking forward to more availability of CLT. I'm in the same camp as you, Tommy. I think CLT is going to take off like mad. It's one of those, and it's going to surprise everyone because all that it has to happen is it gets designed in, and people don't know. They don't check in with each other. Oh, I'm designing a CLT building. All of a sudden, 100 people have designed this building, and the CLT market is going to go boom. So I look forward to it. Excellent. Well, if you want to learn more about Vicksburg Forest Products, they've got a great website. If you want to buy some of their material, you can get on Materials Exchange, and we will definitely have their material to sell. Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We had a nice crowd today. We appreciate it. The video will be up on YouTube to view later and share with your friends. So with that, we're going to sign off. Tommy?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, appreciate it.